Roger Watson, and I'm the Editor-in-Chief of the Journal of Advanced Nursing. And you may not know, but this is the 40th year since Jan was inaugurated in 1976, and we're celebrating a Ruby anniversary. And what we've asked the editors to do is to choose papers from the first issue and to say something about them and to look at how things have changed since that time.
I'm Rita Pickler. I'm an editor for the Journal of Advanced Nursing. I picked a paper from our first issue to focus on, and the paper had to do with home health visiting nursing. I chose that paper because the topic, the process of home health visiting nursing, is much the same today as it was 40 years ago, if not 100 years ago. Nursing has long had a tradition of visiting families in the home, particularly families with young children, a particular interest of mine. And I thought this paper, which was a study of the types of home health visits that were being made at the time, was very interesting because while most of the visits were in fact made to families of small children, they were also making visits of frail elderly and of individuals with mental health conditions. This is very pertinent for today as well, and I believe that we have an opportunity to engage our home health visiting nurses in the care of individuals who are now in the community rather than in our tertiary care hospitals, most of which are focused on very critical illness. So I do believe that while the paper written 40 years ago focused on what was happening at the time, we still see those very needs of patients and families today that we saw 40 years ago. And we still see the promise that home health nursing can provide in meeting those folks' needs.
I chose a paper called Midwife or Obstetric Nurse by Jean Walker. And I chose this paper for two reasons. One, I used to work with Jean at the University of Edinburgh, and I was previously a student at St George's Hospital in London. And when I'd been there, I worked for a month in midwifery as a student with Caroline Flint, who set up the Know Your Midwife scheme. And I was also surrounded by midwives in my trade union branch who were members of the Radical Midwives organisation. And I never had any impression that midwives had difficulties with their identity, but it was clear from Jean's paper that this was an issue, that midwives weren't really sure or accepted as being a separate profession or being obstetric nurses. So Jean's paper is based on a talk she gave in Europe a couple of years before the paper was published, and she discusses whether midwives really are nurses or midwives professionals in their own right. And it's a very interesting paper. It's rather thin on the methodological side. I think this has changed a lot in the way we publish papers now. People are much more explicit about the methods. And the paper involved questioning midwives and nurses about their perception of what they would do and who would take over in a midwifery situation if the consultant obstetrician came into the room. And really there were no surprises. The consultant obstetricians assumed that they should take over, the midwives assumed that they shouldn't. So there was a clear dichotomy in what they thought. And I think in terms of the substance of the paper, what's changed since then is that midwifery is now very clearly a separate profession. It's people can enter midwifery directly through a degree programme, and in fact the degree programmes in midwifery preceded many of the nursing degree programmes, and it's been an all-graduate entry profession for quite a long time. So that's changed because in the old days you did nursing and then you did midwifery, so it always sort of blurred the boundaries between the two things. So as I say, I'm very glad to have picked up on Jean's paper and remembered not only the paper but to remember Jean again after over 25 years. Jean is long retired, but Jean Walker is also known as the editor who set up one of our rival journals, Nurse Education Today, and that's now under its third editor and a very successful educational journal indeed. So that's the paper I chose. I hope you enjoy reading my editorial, and I also hope that you'll look back to the original paper. Thanks very much.
I'm Jane Noyes. I'm Reviews Editor for the Journal of Advanced Nursing. I also am quite active in the Cochrane collaboration. I co-convene the Cochrane Qualitative and Implementation Methods Group. I chose Christine Chapman's article, which was published in 1976, and Christine was looking at the use of theory to underpin and plan nursing care in clinical care in practice. I thought that this paper was absolutely groundbreaking even back in 1976, and it still has resonance today. By way of example, I've just written a paper looking at social theories in systematic reviews, and I was looking back at Christine Chapman's original paper and thinking how foundational it was and how much it's influenced my work today. Our latest guidance draws on Christine's work, and it's still relevant today in the fact that social theories underpins research, clinical practice, education and management. So I'm very grateful to Christine for being so groundbreaking back in 1976 and for publishing her paper in the Journal of Advanced Nursing.